James Gunn's Superman is a generation-defining superhero film.
Hey, buddy, eyes up here.
David Corenswet brings Clark Kent and brings Superman into the light like we truly have never seen him before. There's a lot I love in what James did in Superman. The heart, the humility, the hope, you get all of that. A soaring start to the DCU.
Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. My God, I love Nicholas Hoult, but I wanted to punch him through the screen. He is such an asshole in this movie, and it's so good. There's a lot to love in this movie. There's also a lot to be critical of. I love these characters. I love what they've been able to do, but there are things obviously that don't always hit. Is it a great movie? It really is, though.
I thought this movie would really define who Superman was, who he is, and how I envisioned him, and it's just like, it's not there yet. The story is great. Performances from the whole cast, great. But there is something about this movie that just didn't hit for me. When I left the theater, I didn't feel this excitement that I need to watch this again. And that really bothers me.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Superman. We're finally here. We can finally stop looking up and now look forward at our screens because the review for Superman is finally out. And so are our amazing thoughts behind this film. And joining alongside me here are some of the most Supermen that I know, Daniel and Anthony. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I really loved being called a Superman, but you call it Supermen. Superman is great.
Well, there's two of you. There's two.
There's two of us. Correct. It's true. Combined, we are super. When we are individual, we are not.
We're just men.
It's so weird to say that we have watched Superman.
Yeah.
Like, truly, it is blowing my mind a little bit to say that we have seen Superman beginning to end, post-credit scenes. We have sat through a movie that we have been waiting for so long, and I'm just so happy to be here with you three. Also, not just that, because this is our first review together in quite some time. Again, there might be some time traveling happening with when this is releasing and other stuff that we have coming out, but we haven't been together in almost a month because we were traveling, and now we are together, and what a movie to come back to watching together than Superman.
Yeah, today's my first time seeing Anthony in like a month, and he was like, didn't even say anything about my head, didn't say anything about my bald head at all.
No, I said,
like,
when
wait,
you sent me the picture. What do you want me to say? Like, oh,
I don't know. Just now you're seeing it in person, and you're just like,
well, you had your hat
for
on,
this movie.
so I couldn't tell.
But then I took it off on the ride home, and you were just like,
yeah.
And you're like, I'm gonna take a nap,
That's
guys.
glare.
It's like glare.
Yeah, no, but you went full method for this movie, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You went
I went
full Lex Luthor.
Full Lex Luthor.
Yeah. To be fair, though, we did tell you that, Shay, that you have a great head. Like, you do have, like, if anyone's going to rock the balds, like Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, you have a really great head for it.
Thank you. I'm very happy that I'm at this point in my life now. So thank you so much, Anthony. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about Superman. I think this is it's a long time coming. I think we've all been talking about it for so long, and it's finally here. Too long, but it's finally here. We could talk about it.
Absolutely. And we've been part of the marketing for this film. You know, we all three of us were lucky enough to get the Superman sweaters. And then when the trailer dropped, we had the opportunity to preview that and talk about it. And there's this, breaking news right here, hot off the press that maybe we'll be talking to some people from this movie. So just, if you're not sure who we are with Movie Podcast, you can see all of our show notes down below. You can follow us on all social media platforms. You can even join our Discord, where we're going to be announcing a lot of great stuff as well. So if you want to know who we're talking to in this movie, click right down below, because that's where you're going to get all the information possible.
And, we're paid shills now. So you can look at us and be like,
we're paid
I'm not going to trust the Superman review, because Warner Brothers is obviously paying them. There's the big Gunn empire now that's fully at work that's going to be, paying for good reviews. No, we're not paid by anybody.
This will be a very honest review. Like, this is going to be a very, very honest review.
100%. Again, like, we are three Supermen who are super fans of Superman. So we need to be honest. That was a tongue twister to say. I'm glad that I got it out. But again, like we said, we've been waiting so long for this movie to come out. We're very excited. But no movie is above criticism. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about today for sure. Minus spoilers.
But before we get into anything else about Superman, huge shout out to our friends over at Warner Brothers and DC Studios for inviting us to watch this movie and for the interviews that we're about to do as well. So huge shout out to them. Thank you so much. We are forever in your debt of Fortress of Solitude, of course. So without further ado, let's go over to our first reaction to Superman. So Daniel, take it away.
Here it goes. I think James Gunn's Superman is a generation-defining superhero film and a soaring start to the DCU. And I'm going to tell you why. We're getting a Superman that fully embodies everything that I grew up believing this character believes in. He believes in truth, he believes in justice, and I think he believes in saving people and being the best hero that he can be. And I think David Corenswet brings Clark Kent and brings Superman into the light like we truly have never seen him before. And let me also tell you that Superman is unapologetically a James Gunn movie and a comic book brought to life. It really is really impressive to see some of the visuals that this movie is pulling off, from Superman saving people, but also those quieter moments with Superman and Lois. And it's not afraid to have this alien creature fighting another giant alien creature or kaiju in the middle of Metropolis, but also spend time with Clark and Lois, debating politics and debating, the heart of what Superman is. And there's a lot in Superman. And I mean, this movie is jam-packed with so much story, for better and for worse. I was grinning the majority of the time watching this movie, but I also think in that 2 hours and 9 minutes, there's a lot of plot points that I don't think get enough love. And obviously we're going to go, point by points in our spoiler discussion when that comes out on release day. But overall, I'm leaving this film very excited for the future of Superman, really excited for the future what the DCU is going to be, and just curious to see what comes next, because there are so many things introduced in this film that it's a little overwhelming whenever you're watching a movie for the first time, especially a movie that you've been waiting so long for. I feel like this is the Superman movie that I've been waiting my whole life for. Seeing Superman Returns on the big screen was, it was cool, but it was also, a pseudo sequel to, Superman 2. And then Man of Steel, seeing that, another film that a little bit of a shock watching that movie with everything that happens, a very different take on Superman. But this feels like a comic book brought to life. This feels like the animated series brought to life. And sometimes I felt like I was trying to catch up on what was happening. Sometimes it felt like, I'm like, oh, like he's been Superman for 3 years, but, metahumans have been around for like 300 years. So I wish there was a little bit of a cleaner entry point into this world, because what Superman does is that it throws you into this universe right away, and you're just, holding on. You're going super speed, trying to catch up with everything's going on. But what I will say, and we're going to obviously break down everything in this film, David Corenswet is a phenomenal Superman. I think Rachel Brosnahan is a great Lois, and I am so excited to see more of them in this DCU going forward.
That's a great kind of place to jump off from, where you're talking about how there's a lot in this movie, because there really is. There's so much in the 2 hours and 9 minutes that you get here that you're just like, oh my God, slow down a bit. And I think one of the ways that I kind of felt this movie was going, it really did feel like 30-minute episodes that were kind of compiled into one, because some of the vignettes, when you're talking about the transitions from moment to moment, really felt like, oh, we're kind of completing this, we're now jumping over to this, and we're now jumping over to this. And again, it is for better or for worse, because it's entertaining for sure, but you feel a little bit of the connective tissue lost when you're watching a movie like this. You're thrown into it. And if you don't have any idea who Superman is for some reason, if you've been living under a rock, or if you're just somebody who's maybe general audience, you might be kind of thrown in there like, oh, what's kind of going on here? Is this the second film? Am I watching a sequel right now? Or is this the first movie? Because yeah, you do get a little bit of text in the beginning that kind of, lets you know, hey, metahuman's been around, like Daniel was saying here, for 300 years and so on and so forth. And I think that was brilliant. It was a great way to start the movie. And there's a lot of great things that happen in it. But when you're kind of thrown in, you always feel like you're playing catch up, because there's some things that obviously they take changes with here. They make some differences that they want to kind of throw in. And when you're watching the movie, you're like, okay, where are we though? What has happened? Like I'm trying to replay the film back to myself right now. I'm trying to think what is the period of time for this movie? Is this like over a week? Is this over a couple of days? Is this over a couple of months?
I believe it's over a week.
Is it over a week?
But
and it happens so fast. Like everything kind of happens so quickly. And I think that's where I wish this movie took some liberties in slowing itself down, taking the story and really just simplifying it, because there is a core story here that is very relevant and also very good, but it has a lot going on with it as well. In terms of performances, phenomenal. I think Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, my God, I love Nicholas Hoult, but I wanted to punch him to the screen. He is such an asshole in this movie, and it's so good. He's phenomenal. David Corenswet, fantastic as well. Rachel Brosnahan, love her. And even Skyler, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name now. Skyler, who plays Jimmy Olsen, he's really funny. He has some great moments in this movie as well. There's a great cast, but one of the things that this movie also has a problem with is it doesn't give everybody the moment to shine. And sometimes characters that you think are going to have, some dialogue or some moments, they kind of get thrown to the side and you wonder what's going on here. Edi Gathegi, who plays Mr. Terrific, has a really big role in this movie, bigger than I thought, to be honest with you. And he's fantastic as well. But again,
he's terrific, Shay. Come on.
He's terrific. I know. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it.
There for you, man.
I thought about it.
Terrific.
I thought about it, but I was like, it's too easy.
I wanted to quickly say though, Shay, like again, because this isn't, again, we're rebooting this universe, and some things are being pulled from the Suicide Squad, as we saw in Creature Commandos, and we see Rick Flag Sr. Played by Frank Grillo, who was in Creature Commandos, and he makes reference to his son who, died in Corto Maltese, which was in the Suicide Squad, which is not fully canon. So obviously there's a little bit of like, we'll see what's canon until it's not canon in this universe. I'm just saying, and take this however you want. I wouldn't be surprised for some general audiences who don't follow things as closely as we do if they're thinking, oh, is this supposed to be in the same world, but this is just a new director, a new actor, so it's a little different looking? Is this supposed to be in the same world as the DCEU? I wouldn't be surprised if people coming to this
absolutely
maybe thought that
100%.
that this is a continuation, even though it's a soft reboot. It's a different Superman, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people, general audiences, were a little confused if this was maybe attached to the Henry Cavill Superman, but not entirely. Again, we know that it's not, but I'm just saying, general audiences watching this, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of confusion because lots is happening.
Yeah, like I said, a lot happening, but there's a lot of great in this movie too. And I left the film, I guess, not feeling the weight of the movie, but I still left going like, I had a really good time with that. I really enjoyed it. But I want to give the floor to everybody else as well. So Anthony, please take us further. If you can, take us higher.
Take us higher or take us lower?
Lower. Bring us back to hell. No, I'm just kidding.
No. There was a lot of anticipation. Like, for me, this was huge. And I think even for James Gunn, he said it, like, this is make or break it. If we don't make this movie good, it's going to break what I'm trying to create. And for me, when I heard those words, I'm like, okay, this guy, he has to give it all he's got. Like, he can't fuck up. Like, this is it. This is the story. This is gotta be it. So when I came out of this film, I'm like, I just didn't have the impact that I wanted from this movie. I just didn't feel what Daniel felt, in the sense of like this idea of this man it's interesting because this film is a good movie, but there are things in this movie I don't like.
I'm with you, Anthony, and like I felt it in the sense of this is going to define DC going forward. Like, this is that when I say it's a generation defining superhero film, this is defining this era of DC going forward.
Yeah,
100%.
And I thought
this is what it's going to be.
I thought this movie would really define who Superman was and who he is and how I envisioned him. And it's just like, it's not there yet. Like, he didn't get it for me. Just as for me, I can't speak for everyone else.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
It's like, the story is great. David Corenswet, great. Performances from the whole cast, great. But there is something about this movie that just didn't hit for me. I don't know if it's because of the whole entire story arc, which could be really convoluted at times, and you're being thrown here and thrown there, and there's political and just storylines, which I'm like, we don't need in this version of Superman yet, maybe in the future. Or it could be just there were so many characters, but there was something that I did when I left the theater. I didn't feel this excitement that I need to watch this again, and that really bothers me. Like, it really does bother me. And we watched it on IMAX, and it's huge, right? It looks big, but it might be like, I kept thinking about the scale doesn't feel big enough for this character, even though he's this giant presence on screen. It just felt that the scale wasn't captured on the camera as in the same context as the character himself is in the comic books. So I enjoyed this movie, but there's things that I'm just not satisfied with. But I respect what James Gunn is doing, because it is giving us the Superman that we all are looking for, which is the symbol of hope and someone who really is there to be a hero in this world. And there's no dark and gloominess to his character and his personality. There are types of parts of this movie where his personality shows in a different light that I'm not used to, for sure. But, you know, like, I think there's a future here. I'm very curious to see what the general audience thinks of the movie.
It's always funny when we come out of a film, especially a movie this big, and kind of like you're saying, Anthony, here, what does everyone else think? Because you kind of feel like you're in a bubble. You feel like, is this going to be good? And sometimes when the reviews come out and people start talking about it, you're like, oh, people loved it. Wow, that's fantastic. Or we loved something, and then people go like, that was dog shit. And you're like, oh, wow, I did not expect that at all.
Am I dog shit?
Am I the problem? And I think a movie like this, you know, like, I think you nailed it there, Anthony, when you were saying, you know, you didn't walk out of it like, we didn't walk out of it fist pumping. I don't think this movie ever gave me that moment where I was like, yeah. There were a lot of great moments. I think there's a lot of great visual moments. There's some beautiful scenes, but then there are also scenes that don't look so great, and they look kind of muddy. They look kind of very CG, and they take away from that. And I think that one of the things that we talked about here is you're starting this brand new franchise, this brand new world. There are things that you should really focus on, and I think that relationship between Lex and Superman is so important. And they kind of throw us in the middle of it when you really want to know, oh, how did this start? Why is Lex this angry? And he has some exposition dialogue that he kind of gets out of the way to tell us why he's so against Superman. And it's great, but you can tell that there's a better story in the beginning of that feud. You can tell there's a better story in how that all started. And you can tell that you want to know more about the Fortress of Solitude. The moments that we were there, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. We're finally seeing this. And then we left. And then we're moving from here to here to here. And there's a lot of that movement. But the parts that you really enjoy are the characters. You really enjoyed some of the fight scenes. You really enjoy seeing David Corenswet in that suit, because the suit looks great.
And you're right, Jay. I think the chemistry between Nicholas and David is great, because the moments they are on screen, you believe that there is this, you believe Lex hates him. And not just because he's this alien. There's something that Lex saw in him that put him on this path. And that's the part where you're like, what is it? Do we have to wait for another movie? Do we have to wait for a spin-off or a series? And it's just like those points in a film where you start to question, why does he think this way? Because not everyone knows that Lex hates Superman because he's an alien. There's something bigger than just that, right? And sometimes when they kind of address it, but they don't really hit it on the head. And even there's a sequence that's like, this is the first time we met. And you're like, holy shit, this is the first time you met, but you hate him so much that you go through the length.
Generational hater, dude.
Yeah.
Lex is a generational hater in this film.
And
100%.
And you know there's something more that you want, and you're like, there's something here. And I think they
like, give me that story. I'm really interested in that. You know, I want to know more about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting line that Superman says in this film. Or, you know, is said about Superman, is that he loves people automatically, right? And, you know, I think back to how Clark and Lex met in Smallville, and Smallville fans will know, you know, Lex hits Clark with his car, and that's a whole thing in Smallville where, you know, Clark saves him, and he doesn't believe that this guy just saved him, and blah, 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 blah. You know the story. But you see that first interaction, and I think I really wanted to see, even though we see them meet face to face for the first time, they know of each other. They know what the other has been up to. And I just think that I wish I got to see, like you guys are saying, I wish we got to see some of those introductions first. It's great that the DCU wants to, you know, play catch up, and regardless of what is said, it is playing catch up to, you know, almost 20 years of the MCU at this point. We're having an established universe. We know that going forward, Batman and the Robin's going to be Damian, and obviously that's not addressed in this film. I'm just saying from news that have been coming out.
Spoilers. Hello.
I know. No, don't worry.
just
Damian Wayne is not in this
No,
movie.
tell
I
him the
promise
truth, Dale. You know he shows up.
Tell the truth, man.
Okay.
Batman.
All 4 Robins.
All 4 Robins.
No. Listen,
Joker
I'm
was
just
crazy.
saying,
Man. Jared Leto Joker back.
There are things that we know have been established in this universe from Creature Commandos and what James Gunn has said in interviews and all of that, and that's great. But one of the things that worked so well about the starting point of Iron Man, and again I'm going to compare it to the MCU, is that this was the entry into this world, and we went on this journey with this character. And like we said already, a lot of this film feels like we're playing a little bit of catch up of what has been established. And as I said earlier, this is unapologetically a comic book movie, and this is a James Gunn comic book movie where it is going balls to the wall with some really out there stuff. We're getting kaijus, we're getting giant alien creatures, we're getting the Justice Gang, we're getting the Baravia Jaranpur conflict, we're getting Lex Luthor, we're getting Metamorpho, we're getting Superman and Lois, getting the Daily Planet, we're getting everything that you expect to read if you open up a page of Action Comics. But that's a lot in one movie. So I think that's where I'm at. There's so much in this movie that I love. I love David Corenswet. I love Rachel Brosnahan. I love Nicholas Hoult. Everyone in this film is fantastic. And I really love the direction of this film. It is very bright. It's very poppy. There's so much, if you love Guardians of the Galaxy and if you love Suicide Squad, there is so much of that energy and that DNA in here because, of course, it's James Gunn writing and directing this thing. But that comes with issues as well. And I don't always think that James Gunn's, punk rock take always meshes with Superman. And I think that's where my biggest criticism comes in with this film, is that we get so many great things in this film, but I don't think there's enough focus on Superman. And when you look back at Man of Steel, you look back at a film that, the take on Clark and Superman was different, but the focus of that film was really, Clark finding out who he is. Obviously, Krypton and all this stuff is happening, but it's a pretty simple story, Man of Steel, when you look back at it. It's a very, very straightforward, and I just rewatched all the Superman films leading up to this. This film, like I said, I just listed off all of the, the kind of plot points happening, the Hammer of Bravia and Ultraman and this and all of these characters. There's so much happening, and Crypto. There's so much happening in this film that it feels like you're just kind of trying to catch your breath and see what's happening, where really I just want to spend time with Clark and Lois, or I just want to spend time with Superman. And I think those are some things where I'm like, I'm glad this is part of a grander universe. And, this grander universe is already at play. But sometimes I'm just like, let's slow down. Let's simplify this. Because the moments where it is, Clois, or it's, Superman being Superman and confronting Lex, that's where this film really shines. Or if he's saving someone. When it kind of gets to the larger world going on, I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I'm really excited for this. But I want to earn that. I don't want to get that right away.
I remember seeing a layout from All-Star Superman, and it's Clark being in his suit, but just his body language and just how he looks as Clark Kent, and then when he's not Clark Kent, as when he's Superman, right? So the different body language. And I'm like, I wish we got more of Clark too. There's not that much sequence of him being fumble bumble Clark Kent trying to navigate through this world in disguise. And there, you see it in the trailer where he has the glasses, the disheveled hair, the suit kind of all messed up. There's not much past that point of seeing who
it's
Clark
literally
is.
just that, right? Yeah.
I think a couple of more sequences that were shot in the Daily Planet or with Clark as as Superman being Clark Kent, I would have enjoyed too, because I think there's this humanity missing from this character too. As much as he says, I love and I fear and all that, when you see Superman as Clark Kent, that's the ground. That's me connecting with the character, because I'm like, oh, it kind of reminds me of me when I'm trying to get around, or I like a girl and she, I'm trying to impress her, but I'm also a bumbling idiot, stuff like that. So you miss that part of the character that builds the actual character.
Yeah, and I think the next thing that, we should really be touching on here is also the score, which for a long time we were talking about, is Superman going to have a new theme in this? Where are they going to go with it? And a lot of the DNA of this film is borrowed or paid homage to from the Christopher Reeves films. You have a lot that is used, whether it's the title sequences, whether it's the actual score. And I'm curious, for you guys, how did that feel for you? Because there's a lot of moments in this movie where I love how the score was going. It has like a rock opera kind of vibe to it, but then it also carries the classical elements that we're so used to from the Superman theme of yesteryear. So with David Fleming, with John Murphy, who John Murphy's worked, has David Fleming also worked with Gunn a lot, or is it just John that's really worked with?
Just
Gunn?
John Murphy. John Murphy jumped in on the third Guardians. He also did the Suicide Squad.
Right.
James used to work with Tyler Bates. David Fleming has not worked with James Gunn, from what I understand. So it's just David Fleming and John Murphy. I think it's a beautiful mixture, because we, like you said, Shay, I think it's really interesting to hear the electric guitar Superman. I think just sounds so cool, but then you're bringing it with like this like punk rockness which a lot of this, like, it's kind of addressed in the film that, Superman is a punk rock fan, and, he's listing off these bands that he likes. And, we get like Noah and the Whale, and we get Soft Machine, which are like songs that are, again, when you hear them, you're like, yeah, this is a James Gunn ass song in a really good way. It feels like a song you would have heard in the Suicide Squad, which had a great soundtrack, and obviously the Guardians, we all know how great those soundtracks were. But I'll be honest, when I'm hearing it, obviously I recognize the Superman theme immediately whenever they were doing little like takes on it, little late motifs from it. But I was so taken by the visuals of this film, watching and see what's happening. The score didn't always pop for me. There are definitely moments where it, like, you felt it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds cool, and I'm really excited to have the soundtrack come out because I want to listen to this isolated and see how it goes. But it sounded really great from what I heard. Obviously, there were a couple licensed tracks that dropped, but yeah, again, when you're borrowing a theme as iconic as Superman and bringing that forward, I'm glad that they kept that DNA, because that is so iconic to the character. But I'm glad they also didn't rely on it, where it wasn't just like, oh, we're just gonna drop, we're just gonna drag and drop, John Williams.mp3 into our Avid while we're editing this.
Yeah.
It's a take on it, as Superman is a take on this character, and in borrowing a lot from other adaptations, from comics, from shows, from movies. We're like so many of the things of this film, James Gunn and John and David want to make it their own. So I think it worked for me, but I am really excited to kind of listen to it in isolated with headphones and just kind of really dissect it that way. Hopefully it will be out when the spoiler discussion drops for us.
And honestly, for me, it's one of those scores that it's just so iconic to the character. The score has been on my mind for a long time since I saw the trailer. I'm like, man, it really hits hard for me. But it's like Indiana Jones, like it's that score. It's like Star Wars. It's a score that's so synonymous with the character. You can't really
John Williams
disassociate yourself from it. Like you can't disassociate the character
from it. It's a hopeful score, right?
Yeah, and it
everything
just
else
well.
feels like it's like, oh, do they not have the rights to it? You know what I mean? Like, when I watch Superman the animated series, is like da 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 da. It's like you want to use it, but they're like, no, we can't use it for some reason. So to have it coming forward, I'm glad that it did. I know people will criticize it, that it's not nostalgia bait. It's not legit. It's not used in the way that you think it's going to be used. It's been used in the trailers a lot, and obviously you hear it in this film. But it's not like, oh, this is a cheat code. I think, if anything, you look at, again, don't come for me here. You look at what Hans Zimmer did in Man of Steel. So much of the emotion of that movie is carried by the score, because Henry Cavill isn't emoting a lot because he's very stoic in that film. And again, that works for what the story they're telling in that film. But when you hear that dum dum, and you hear like which was already a little play on the John Williams one, it's using the 1 and the 5 in the chord, but it's like you're playing with themes that we know and recognize. And I think, in Man of Steel, obviously that does a lot of the weight, the emotional weight, where a lot of the emotional weight is actually coming from the characters in this James Gunn version, the happy and the sad and the angry and all of that.
Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Because we've been talking for a while now, and I'm sure that there's going to be a longer discussion when we get to our spoiler review. But before we wrap up, is there anything you guys want to say?
I did want to talk about, and this is something that we could talk about spoiler free. The cinematography of Superman is a big question going into this film. Henry Brom, who's worked with James Gunn on Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad. This is a question that a lot of people have been wondering. does Superman look good? And I want to know from both of you, what were your thoughts on the visuals? What were your thoughts on the VFX? But more specifically, how did this movie look for you? Are you a fan of the look of this film? I want to preface this by saying, or I want to preface this by saying, a lot of the trailer shots that people were kind of upset about were either adjusted or weren't used as long in this film, or used different takes from what we initially saw in that first trailer. So there was nothing that really stood out to me visually that I was like, this looks weird, as it did in a lot of the trailers, because we're getting him as full shots or sequences, not just, cherry picked low quality versions off of Twitter or YouTube. But I did want to know your thoughts on, what did you think Superman looked like? How did you think of it, how it looked?
I think for me, I was very up and down with that feeling, because there were some moments that looked really great. But ultimately, walking out of this movie, I wasn't blown away by the visuals. I don't think there was anything that made me go like, that's going to remain in my head forever, or like, that looked really, really good. I think it's a good looking movie. I think there's some good shots. There's a really, really beautiful shot that happens in the movie. But it never hits the punch. It never, I think, knocks it out of the park for me completely. I think it looks great, but I think when I look back to Guardians Volume 3, there are moments in that film that are embedded in my brain. Like, I remember them so well visually and everything else. But this movie is very bright, which is great, which is a nice change of pace from Man of Steel and that world. But there isn't ever a moment where I was like, wow, like this looks amazing. So that's kind of, I think, one of the places where I'm just like, oh yeah, good looking movie, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah, I think because the majority of this film takes place in the daytime, other than when we're in, as we've seen in the trailers, that kind of prison
which can't really
that
say
Superman
what
gets
it is
into.
yet. Yeah.
No, but like, if you're following along, you know what we're talking about. But the majority of this film is taking place bright. It's like when we were playing Spider-Man on PS5, it's like you set your settings to daytime. It's like we're in a bright, very brightly lit city. So I think you lose a little bit some of the cinematic look of this film, especially being in that big aspect ratio. But yeah, Anthony, what are your thoughts on that?
I could count maybe 4 or 5 shots in this film that look beautiful, like just stunning, like Alex Ross type of paintings. But then as a whole of a film, it is not the cinematic visual language that I was looking for, and it could be because they used this new lens that had different focal points. It could just be the way James Gunn likes to shoot his sequences. It almost feels like a robotic arm is moving this camera all around. But I think when it comes to, when you look at these films and you go like, that's the shot. Right now I can think of the Batman. There's like 10, 20 shots in my head right now, just like going through them.
And just the intro.
And just like
just the intro.
And it sucks because, Superman is a more colorful character in this world, but I think they could have used the sun more around him to create, and there are sequences where they show him, but it's like so short. But I think the sun could have been a big part of the scale of his character on the big screen. I think there's a lot of CG in this film, a lot of CG background, which kind of pulls you out of it. And when you have that and you're trying to mix it with this, a certain camera look, you just are thrown out of, this feels more of a visual CG fest than an actual, like, let's really focus on getting the lens to love this character.
That's a great point. That's a really great point, I think, to bring it on that. And obviously, you look at the Batman, Greg Fraser, like, you're going to get, cheat code when you have that man as your cinematographer, right?
Well, let's take it over to our final recommendations for Superman. So, Daniel, please take us to Krypton.
Well, looky here, Shahbaz. It's been almost an hour since I told you that I think this is going to be a generation-defining film for DC. And I think it really is a soaring start to this new universe. There's a lot I love in what James did in Superman. The heart, the humility, the hope, you get all of that. I think you get a great dynamic with Lois and Clark. You need to make these two work. And you throw in Lex in there, the other LL in Superman's life. Nicholas Hoult is fantastic. And you look at the supporting cast, I think everyone truly does shine in their performances. I don't think a lot of the characters, because this film really is, balancing so many plates of the story that it's telling us, I don't think they all get their time to shine. And because of that, it can feel very scattered. But I truly love so much of what James Gunn gave us in Superman. And it makes me so hopeful for the future of the foundation of what this film is giving us. So I'm just really excited to see what comes next. I think the title of movie of the summer is still up for grabs. And I think that's a big thing. Again, big for me to say as, diehard Superman fan. But the movie of the summer is still up for grabs. Fantastic Four is still coming out. Weapons is still coming out. We're seeing F1 tonight.
Jurassic World.
Jurassic World is coming too, that, we haven't seen it yet. There's a lot out there coming. And, obviously we're going to bring you reviews and discussions on all of it. Don't take that as a negative for this film. I am so excited. I cannot wait to watch it again. I think it's a watch it. And it truly is a promise of really good things to come. And for the first time in a long time, it feels damn good to be a DC fan.
Amen. Anthony, what about yourself?
It'd be crazy for me to say not to watch it. That's nuts, man. This is not Justice League, this is not Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is a good film. Honestly, even though there are things in the movie that I didn't connect with or I wasn't blown away with, I still think it's a good movie. It's a good Superman story. I think it's one of the best Superman stories, but there's not a lot of Superman stories. But I feel like we're on the right path to getting there. And I think James Gunn knows what he wants. And I think that the DCU, is it DCEU? DCU?
DCEU, formerly. The DCU is the current one. You got it.
DCU is on the right path to creating a studio with great stories. And as much as I think this Superman will grow on me, I think eventually the sequel or however many movies he shows up in, this world, these characters and all the new things that we're gonna with Wonder Woman and Batman and Supergirl and all those characters, I think will complement this story. They're gonna create this, and it's gonna be like, that works with what we're going, and I think that's where I'm at with it. Sure, I'm not blown away by it, but I still think it's a good movie to watch. It's great to watch on the big screen. If you're a fan of Superman, you're going to love it. If you're a really fan of the lore of Superman, because he goes really into the deep, story arcs of who this character is, and it's not just like I'm Man of Steel, but there's a lot of things scientifically and sciencey and spacey that really come out of this story. You'll love it.
Absolutely. And I think you guys kind of nailed it here with everything you said. There's a lot to love in this movie. There's also a lot to be critical of. And I think, as we go forward, as we get a new regime, as we get a new DCU, we need to demand better, and we need to demand the things that we really want to see. So getting our voices heard out there, this is where it's coming from. But I think, again, this is such a solid start. I love these characters. I love what they've been able to do. But there are things, obviously, that don't always hit. Is it a great movie? It really is, though. So you still should check it out. And of course, that means you should watch it. Huge shout out to our friends over at...
the way you were saying that, Shay, was we got to demand what we want. That's what we got to restore the Snyderverse. That's what we got to
Dude, you were starting an uprising.
I think that we need
what
to...
is going on here?
Zack Snyder was right. Breaknecks all the time.
But it's funny though. It's funny that the two biggest movies that we were looking forward to this summer, I think both suffer from the same issue, that there's too much packed into them, and that's Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Superman, where traditionally all we kind of want is just focus on the singularity. And in both films, the issues were we got so much put into this film, and Superman, especially in the shorter runtime, we got a lot going on in it.
Again, thank you to our friends over at Warner Brothers and DC Studios for inviting us to watch this movie and also do some really cool interviews. Join our Discord to find out more about that, and follow us on all social media platforms out there. Subscribe to us, give this video a comment. Let us know how stupid we are or how amazing we are, and what questions you have about Superman that you want answered in a spoiler review. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.